thank the people who put this together. I want to thank the folks from the LPRA, Ruth Montgomery, Cindy Pramin, Geraldine Canty, Rini Toback, and Jane Lauer Barker. If you could stand up and just let people see who you are and that you worked hard to get this together. And we work closely with the Park Hill Residents Association Board, Mary Lee Schooneman, and the rest of the other members of the Park Hill Board, if you could stand up and let us see who you are. Great. Thank you very much. Okay, Ruth Montgomery, who's a former LPRA president, is going to be our moderator tonight. Please listen. We're very tight time-wise tonight, so we're going to be really strict with our introductions and wrap-ups and times for questions and so forth. Okay, so please listen.
We're going to start with the first race. The first race that we're going to start with is the Yonkers City Council District 2. The way we do it, the opening and closing remarks, the order are, we're going to do it by lot. Up higher, she says. Okay. So we'll flip a coin to see who goes first for the opening remarks, and then whoever goes first for the opening remarks will go last for the closing remarks. And then we will, the opening remarks are limited to 2 minutes. We have a timer, and we're asking the candidates to please observe the timer. And then we will ask questions. We've already received questions in advance via email, and then we will be taking questions from the audience. And there are going to be index cards that are circulating. Please be sure and put which race your question is for. So if it's for city council, for legislator, county legislator, or county executive, you can submit all your questions now, but make sure you say on the card who it is for. And we ask all our questions to both candidates, so please put it in a format that is appropriate to ask both candidates. So we will be mixing questions that we receive in advance with the ones received from the audience to try to cover as many as we can in the half hour that we have allotted. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to the question, and then they will each have 30 seconds for rebuttal. So it's not a lot, but we want to cover a lot of ground. And each candidate will then have the opportunity for a 2-minute closing statement. So I just want to say that we need the cooperation of the audience. Tonight is not a night to express your approval or disapproval of what each candidate says. It's an opportunity to learn what their opinions and how they will approach things, and then the ballot box on September 12th is where to register your opinion. So we ask that you not express your approval or disapproval. Okay, would the candidates for City Council please come forward? We have on my left, Wilson Torero, and on my right, Corazon Isaacs. So I have an unloaded quarter here. Eileen, do you want to flip it? I'm terrible at it.
We'll flip it and it'll land on the ground?
Yeah. Somebody has to call it.
Okay, that looks like two.
Okay, so Wilson, you'll go first with your opening statement.
Good evening. First of all, I wanted to thank the Ludlow Park Association for the invitation and the Park Hill Association for the invitation. Thank you both. My name is Wilson Terrero, and I'm running for the 2nd Council District. I have lived in Yonkers for 25 years. Most recently moved to the Park Hill neighborhood and have always been active in our community. I am one of the founders of the Dominican Cultural Association of Yonkers, and I'm responsible for the creation of many programs that benefit the community, such as art and craft program for children and seniors, citizenship classes, financial planning seminars, Christmas toy giveaway, student scholarships. My community involvement is not limited to just that. I was also an advisor to the Mexican American Chamber of Commerce of Yonkers, United Taxis of Yonkers, and United Laborers. I also serve as the board member of the Yonkers Community Development Agency. You see, my parents grew up in a small town, believing that it took a village to raise a family. They made sure everyone was safe, were fed, had a home, and received a quality education. In 2009, I was elected and given the honor to serve as your council person. I practiced what my parents taught me. For safety, I added funding to restore and add 35 police officers, which included bicycle and foot patrol, 32 firemen, funding for SNOG to take guns off the street, and street lighting to brighten our street, deter crime, and conserve energy, which saved millions in tax dollars. I also provided funding to increase and expand the senior nutrition program that ensure that our seniors in need were not only well fed, but also engaged with our Office for the Aging. Having a place to call home is important to all. I am proud to say that in 2013, as Majority Leader, I was able to negotiate the first ever affordable housing law that ensures that people have more opportunity to secure housing at a low rate. Given the increase in development, this law was a win-win. I am most proud of my education record. As Majority Leader, working with all elected officials, the Council was able to provide $213 million to renovate our schools, restore arts, music, sport, counselors, and teachers. We also restored and reopened the libraries on Sunday. In closing, I have served the community in many ways. I have been successful by working with all elected officials. I ask that you give me the honor, the opportunity to once again serve you in the city of Yonkers. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to firstly thank the Ludlow Park Resident Association and the Park Hill Resident Association for hosting this forum, which allows us the opportunity to have an informative session where you can learn about the candidates, learn their platforms, and make an educated decision on September 12th. My name is Corazon Pineda, and I am your councilwoman representing the 2nd Council District. I have been very proud to serve you for the last 4 years. And in these last 4 years, we have been able to accomplish many things. Early on in my tenure, I was able to allocate $1 million towards a community center in Nodine Hill. Why is this important? Because early on in my career, I understood that resources for our youth are so important. I understood that support for families are so important. And that's why I was a big advocate for providing funding for this community center in Nodine Hill. I was also a co-sponsor and a big supporter of Stop the Chop, a campaign that prevented a heliport from coming into our backyards because someone thought that they would have the idea to bring a lousy and loud heliport into our city, and that we would not make more noise than the heliport would have made in our community. So I was very happy to support and unanimously pass the banning of heliports here in our city. In addition, I also created a landlord registry. A landlord registry which is going to protect renters from inadequate living conditions. Why did I do this? Working with CVH, what we found was that many people, many renters were living in conditions where in housing and apartments that either didn't have adequate heat, didn't have hot water at some times, didn't have working elevators, had infestations. So what we found was that we needed a type of venue that would allow landlords to be held accountable for their actions and to provide adequate living conditions for their inhabitants. I've also been a big champion of our Yonkers public schools, fighting each and every year for additional funding, because education is the foundation of everything. We all know that there's a direct correlation between crime, between poverty, between success, and it all comes down to education. And I've been a big fighter in making sure that we do our very best to provide a full and well-rounded education for our students. And I will not stop until that has been completed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'll give you the first question, Corazon. When advocating for democratic priorities, how do you work with Republicans on the council? What are your strategies? We're going to rotate questions.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Oftentimes, navigating the democratic policies through the council can be very difficult. But I think that when you come in with an open mind, when you speak to council members about why this issue is important, when you express to them eloquently what legislation means. For example, we introduced bringing to the city of Yonkers, I was a co-sponsor, having a living wage here in our city, right? Because people should be able to work and make enough money to not live in poverty, to live out of poverty. And unfortunately, we have not been able to take this item out of committee. But what we don't do is give up. We continue to have the conversation with our colleagues to let them know that not everyone is making a living wage. Not everyone is living the way that, you know, they maybe are not, in ways that they maybe are not familiar with. And I think when you provide these stories, when you provide these scenarios to council members, you do so in a manner that you hope that they can be sympathetic to why we push for these legislations. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, to explain why pieces of democratic legislations are important, why we need these in our communities, and to continue to make sure that we have these kind of things moving forward.
So before we continue, we hold it here, ma'am. Yeah, just watch out for feedback there.
Yes, please.
Okay, how will you work with Republicans on the council, and what are your strategies?
Well, if you look at my past, when I worked in the Yonkers City Council, I was very successful when passing legislation. And the fact that I was successful is because I know how to work with all elected officials. I was able to bring $213 million to the Yonkers public schools to restore, you know, teachers, sport, music. When you do that, it's because everybody listen to you. You know how to combine the effort. And the council, although they are Republicans or Democrats, we have to work with the same goal. And the goal is to make sure that, in this case, the second council district is well represented. Not just well represented, but have legislation that favor to our district, to our youth, to our community.
Rebuttal?
So, Mr. Terrell mentioned that he did a very good job at working with the Republicans, and I agree. He did a good job at hindering and stopping democratic legislation from moving forward. Let me give you a few examples. School 19 was a school that was demolished, and two proposals came before it after the property was demolished. One of those proposals being a community center coming to the Highland Avenue area, or the other one was a development. The vote went down 4-3. 3 Democrats voting against the development, and 3 Republicans voting for the development. And the tiebreaker was Mr. Terrell, voting with the Republicans and development for that community, for hindering of the community center. So when your question said, how do we push forth democratic values, it's not how do we push forth Republican agendas.
30 seconds on the rebuttal.
Well, see, if you look at the school 18, it was total neglected. And the fact that they wanted to do a community center, it was difficult because the group who wanted to do it didn't have any funding to even try to do it. So the developers who actually got into that, who bought the land, and the infrastructure has to demolish the whole school because it was in deterioration. I think it would have been very difficult for any group, individual group, to have the necessary funding to actually do anything with the infrastructure.
Okay, this next question, Corazon, you go first. The Yonkers zoning code bans churches in residential districts from having social services, including job training and food pantries. It also requires agencies in all other locations to get permits, which must be approved by the building department and city council. And it also makes shelters illegal without a zoning variance. Do you think the zoning code needs to be changed, and would you create or support legislation to change it?
So I've had this conversation many times, and often what we find is in government, there are many things that are outdated, and this is being one of those things. This is one of those issues that I think needs to be revisited, it needs to be explored, and I think it needs to be changed. So I am in support in making changes to the zoning code that would allow not-for-profits to have sharing communities, to have shelters, and to operate in a manner that is just for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
It's an interesting question because I know that we fought really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it happens actually. It happened, I'm pretty sure I believe in this administration, in this current administration, and I was really angry when that happened because not-for-profit organization has to pay to go to the library now, have to pay to repair this room, or have to do some variants. For example, churches need to have parking, and it's a big deal for some of these organizations to be able to have a place that they can gather, that they can talk, that they be able to address the issues of the community.
Rebuttal? Question for Wilson. What will you do to support the continued enhancement of the South Broadway Business District?
That was one issue that I worked extremely hard when I was in the Yonkers City Council. I was able to locate some funding for the South Broadway bid, together with then Council Legislator Jose Alvarado and then with Regina Perez. We worked collaborated together to get funding. One of the things that I did also was to fix the sidewalks, the roads. We got a lot of funding to do that. We were able to get some of the Lincoln Park work, redone. So there's a lot of things that we did in the business community, but it's still more to be done because the businesses are dying in the district. The reason I believe, and I'm sure, that is that people doesn't see the area as attractive, and we have to make it better for that. So we have to make it better and continue to invest. Now, the business community also need to understand that without them, we would not be able to do much. Once, because when I was business service liaison, I tell you, in the Yonkers Workforce Development Office, we were able we have funding to work with the business community, what we call on the job training program, that we'll be able to train individuals, or they can train individuals, take advantage of this funding. Half of that, or whatever training that they give to an individual, they can get half of that salary back, meaning that it's investing in the community at the same time that we're creating jobs.
Want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Yes. What will you do to support the continued enhancement of the South Broadway Business District?
So, and I think we hear this often, is that people feel that all of the attention goes to the waterfront, and that South Broadway is not given the attention that it deserves. So one of the things that we have done is we funded the Ranger program, which allows individuals to get paid, and that they wear the orange vest. You've probably seen them, and they pick up the garbage and they make South Broadway look a little bit nicer. And we've taken small steps like those to invest in the bid and make sure that we make it look more appealing. But in addition to that, we also have to, as a council, find ways that we can bring development into South Broadway, so that developers are not only going into the waterfront, right? So that they're seeing the beauty that South Broadway is, because it's the gateway to our city. It's when you're coming from the Bronx, you enter through South Broadway. So I think we have to find a way, and I think moving forward, I'm going to work on beautifying the entrance, right? The entrance of our city, finding either local artists or maybe something that'll really differentiate when you're from the Bronx and when you enter Yonkers. And I think that'll begin to put us in the right direction towards putting South Broadway on the map that it's already in.
Just basically another comment. I know the beautification of the area, the arts, that's already happening. It started a long time ago. We need new ideas. We need leadership. Someone who can actually build in what we already have. So, and the fact that I bring business into Yonkers, we need to bring them into Southwest Yonkers also, so we can have more revenue. So the tax base go down, so we don't have to increase taxes all the time.
So yes, the arts have already started, but just because something has started doesn't mean you can't continue and enhance it. And that's what I want to continue to do. And I think that it's very easy to say, I created jobs, without really having quantitative figures to say, what jobs did you create? What jobs did you really bring? And I think that it's important that we don't just throw figures and numbers and things out there. We really talk about concrete items. And I mentioned concrete items. It's continuing the arts, expanding it, creating some type of difference between the Bronx and Yonkers, and really pulling developers from the waterfront into South Broadway. Thank you.
Okay, Corazon, this next question is for you. To begin with, Westchester Yonkers has a housing crisis. Yonkers affordable housing allotments are only 51 on new construction, down from 5%, sorry, on new construction, down from a promised 20%, I see. Okay, what would you do to relieve the housing homelessness crisis in Yonkers?
So homelessness is a very complex issue, right? Because you have individuals who are members of our community who don't have a place to live, right? And you mentioned, you know, Mr. Terrell loves to talk about the affordable housing ordinance that was passed under his tenure. But what he fails to mention is that the original proposed affordable housing ordinance called for 20% of units from each development to be built. And that was the Democratic plan that was put forward. However, that ordinance was held up in committee for many years, and then on his way out, he voted for a watered-down affordable housing ordinance that only includes 10%, right? So we could have had a strong affordable housing ordinance, and we do not. But to tackle homelessness, I think it's a variety of things. There's a variety of things of having affordable housing, of having support services, of having educational services, because often what we find also is that there's something called the working homeless, right? There are people who work 9-to-5 jobs and they still don't have a place to live. Why? Because the job that they have don't offer a living wage. Because we do not have a living wage here in our city, and because people go to work 2-3 jobs and they still cannot pay to put a roof over their heads. And I think that's what it's important that we understand. And as a council member, my goal is to continue fighting for a living wage so that people can go to work and have a decent income. Revisit, if possible, the affordable housing ordinance. Thank you.
I tell you, I'm very proud of passing this affordable housing ordinance. Right now, with the development that's going on in the city, I think it's a win-win to all of us. Taxes going down, more development coming in, better housing for people that can afford it. So we didn't have any affordable housing. We have zero. So any developer come in and do zero affordable housing. So, and it's been there forever. We didn't have affordable housing ordinance or law. So I was pretty proud because it was passed 7-0. And it was signed by the mayor. So 8 people in the city decided that that was a good affordable housing ordinance. So you tell me if it was right or it was wrong. You see what the development that's going on. That's going to help us to reduce taxes, to keep investing in our schools, to keep have arts, music in our schools. Something that I did. These numbers are real. They are there. You can look at my records and it's out there. So it's not for you to look into it. I'm going to be sending you information. You're going to see my records. It's out there. So I'm very proud of that affordable housing ordinance.
So not to create any confusion, the affordable housing ordinance is a good thing. This is true. But we could have had a stronger affordable housing, which is what my point is. Also, a lot of development was grandfathered in. So for example, the Collins project, which we all love, was grandfathered in. So that development is gonna have zero affordable housing. The Alma project, the project that went up for the school 19, the community center that didn't go up, that also was grandfathered in. Zero affordable housing there. So yes, the affordable housing is good, and the Democrats absolutely pushed it forth and passed it because they knew they were losing the majority, and had they not voted on that then, they would not have gotten affordable housing at all.
Well, unfortunately, Councilwoman, you have to look very into it because this school 18 is going to have affordable housing. It's going to have more than what you think. So the fact that they stopped, one of the things that we did, if they were not be able to develop that project in a year, then we wouldn't get whatever we want in affordable housing. So that's what the contract, and I think it says it's going to happen.
Question for you. Do you support a citywide property revaluation? City of Yonkers last did a citywide property reassessment in 1954, and since 1989, despite much higher market property values, the city's taxable assessed property values has fallen by 210 million. The loss in taxing power is calculated as over $2 billion. What can and should be done to counteract this loss and a key revenue source for the city? Do you support a citywide property revaluation?
I think it should happen. I advocated for that when I was in the Yonkers City Council. I think only Chuck Lestering and I believe Michael Sabatino also wanted to make it happen. I don't want to speak for themselves, but I know we try to have an agreement to get it done. It never happened. They want to do it county-wide, but if we can do it city-wide, that's fine. I think we can push that agenda. It's possible we can get it done. If we have the vote, if the Democrats have the vote, I think it's a good idea to get it done. Now, when it comes to lowering down our property tax, we have to continue to bring more businesses. The way I was doing it when I was in the Yonkers Workforce Development Office. We brought many businesses into the city. You see Lowe's, for example. Lowe's is here, and we were able to get 150 jobs, most of them from the city of Yonkers. So that's some of the things that we need to continue to do in order to bring our income tax down, because our councilwoman actually increased your tax base, your taxes by 12%, your income tax. So if you look at that, I mean, this is very, very hard for us to take when someone is not making enough money nowadays.
So I am in favor of the reevaluations. I think it's a very tough thing because we know that once you do reevaluations, what experts say is that 1/3 of property taxes are going to remain the same, 1/3 are going to go down, and 1/3 are going to go up. But what's going to happen is that now on average, you're not going to have individuals who are paying less tax than they're supposed to, or you're not going to have individuals who are paying more tax than they're supposed to. So it's going to be a more fair system. So I think that it's in the best interest of the city. I think that it's a tough decision for elected officials to do because you're going to have 1/3 of constituents who are not going to be happy that their tax property went up, but you also have individuals now who are paying more taxes than they should, right? So I think it's fair, and I think it's the best thing for us to do as a city, and it's the most responsible, fiscally responsible thing to do. As Mr. Terrell mentioned about the income tax increase, that is correct, but we have to understand that very often we come across difficult budgets, and when you balance difficult budgets, you have to find ways to find revenue. And it was a very tough thing to do. I didn't make the decision lightly. However, the way we increase services and we increase programs is sometimes we do it through taxes. And that's just, unfortunately, the way that sometimes things happen in government.
But you also forgot to mention that you also increased the sales tax. But you also failed to tell you that you also broke the tax cap, which is very important for all of us who pay taxes. As I'm a homeowner, a property tax owner, so I don't want to pay more taxes. Taxes are very difficult to pay. So again, the best things to do is to continue to bring more businesses into Yonkers, create more jobs, and we're going to hopefully at the end of the day, we're not going to pay any property tax at all.
See that happen.
So,
And I'm gonna win the lottery
we
tomorrow.
did increase the sales tax, and what we did with the increases, we made that money go into our school systems. So we understand that our schools need more, and that our children need more. So we did increase the sales tax in order to find additional funding for our Yonkers public schools. I actually voted no on the budget that broke the tax cap. And the reason I did so is because to break the tax cap but not add additional funding to our schools or to services, I think is a disservice to the community, which is why I voted no.
this is going to be our last question, and then we'll move to closing statements. And I've lost track. Who goes next? Corazon. Okay. What will you do to help the residents of Ludlow Park and our neighboring communities enjoy an environment in which odors and noise from commercial activity, industry, barge transport, and sewage treatment are reduced?
So it's important when in government to work collaboratively. So, you know, we were successful in supporting legislation to ban barges, and that was something that I was very proud to support. I think also we have to create more laws that are going to reduce noise, reduce commercial businesses from creating an environment where residents don't feel comfortable in. And I think that we do so by setting strict policies and standards for these businesses that come into our city. The sewage treatment plan, as we know, is a county issue. However, I think that, you know, as a city official, that I, you know, will continue to put pressure on the county to make sure that they do the best that they can with the county sewage treatment plan. For example, when there were rumors of additional diversion coming into our city, I sent a resolution to the Board of Legislators saying that we were against additional diversions to the city of Yonkers. And I think those are the kind of things that we'll continue to push forth so that the county understands that we in Yonkers are not going to just sit back and relax when it comes to what's happening in our own backyard. Thank you.
I meant not to continue to increase more property tax. But yes, when it comes to noise, I know we have some laws out there that we can use and utilize. I think the police should be more forceful in those laws that we already exist. There are plenty out there. I know the Councilwoman created one, but I don't know how a law is a law when it's a local law. We actually have to do more also, because although we're increasing more business in the city, you know, River that Avenue is going to be more commercial by the time it comes on, and we have to be vigilant to that. Vigilant to make sure that, you know, we have more efficiency when it comes to the vehicles and everything that transport in Yonkers and move in Yonkers. I think if we can move forward into that, we're going to be a better city with better atmosphere, and we can have a better city for all.
She gets another. No, she was finished.
Closing statements?
Okay, so Corazon, you make the first closing statement, and there are no rebuttals for the closing statement.
2 minutes, right? 2.
Thank you all for being here, for taking part of the process, for engaging and being concerned citizens of our community. I think this is what democracy is all about. So I humbly ask for your support in the upcoming primary, and it's a Democratic primary. And I think it's important for you to understand that in office right now, you have a true Democrat. Someone, when you call yourself a Democrat, you should stand up for democratic values. You should not be a Democrat for Flammacone, as Mr. Terrero was. You should not vote with Republicans on important democratic legislation, as Mr. Terrero did. And you should be someone who puts forth progressive and important legislation that is good for the community. I'm going to continue to fight to improve our public schools. I'm going to continue to fight to protect renters. I'm going to continue to fight to protect homeowners, to provide cleaner streets, and to really put forth things that are in the betterment of our community. I've been humbled and honored to serve you for the last 4 years, and I am seeking again your support in the upcoming primary to September 12th. If you have any additional questions, I hope you approach me, and I hope you ask me anything else that's on your mind. This has been a great night, and I thank you all for the opportunity.
you are, who you have here in front of you. A humble person who is a leader, has leadership, has made things happen in the second council district and for the city for that matter. I worked extremely hard in the past, and we were able to create more jobs in the city. We were able to bring 34 more police officers, additional police officers, 32 more firefighters to keep our city safe. I was able to pass an affordable housing ordinance that has given us more business, more revenue, in order to continue to invest in our schools. I was able to pass, in collaboration with the council, $230 million to restore our schools, to bring back arts, music, sport that we lost. We restore the libraries open on Sunday. So this is the type of thing that I did. When I go back to the council, I will do it again. I have the leadership to do it, and it's proven out there. So give me another chance, another opportunity, and once again, I'm going to do what's best for this community. I want to go back and be able to, this time, to do the dog park. When I was there, we was able to get the land. Unfortunate, no follow-up was taken. I know Corver Park is an issue in this area. I would like to get into the council and get it done for you. So September 12th, you have a choice. You have a choice of leadership, someone who knows how to get things done, in collaboration with other elected officials. Remember, things cannot be done by yourself, and that's the reason why you're all here, to support who's here, to support the government in order to get things done. I want to be there for you. I'm the right person. September 12th, come out and vote for me. Lo voy a decir esto en español, with all due respect. There are people here who speak Spanish who may not understand what I'm trying to say. Vamos a esperar que ustedes salgan a votar el día 12, la primaria, para todos ustedes. Tienen dos candidatos aquí en frente de ustedes. Por favor, salgan a votar el 12. Tenemos una persona que sabe lo que está haciendo y entiende lo que tiene que hacer. So, I'm sorry, but thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you to both candidates. And now we'll have the county legislature. And we have Lyndon Reyes, and we appreciate your clapping for the opening and closing statements. That's okay, once we're past that point. Continue to not express your approval or disapproval. So, do we still have the quarter? Who wants to call heads or tails?
That's a head.
Okay.
That's a
So-
Republican quarter.
Virginia, we'll let you go first for your opening statement.
Thank you so much. Would you like to go first? Thank you. Next thing you know, you're going to say the order is corrupt. But anyhow, good evening, everyone. My name is Legislator Virginia Perez. I have been your legislator for close to 6 years. I've been serving the community very proudly. I love what I do. I took a significant pay cut 6 years ago to do what I do today. I continue to put myself in political danger in order to do the job that you have elected me to do. I've been accused of being a closet Republican. Not true. No offense to any Republicans in the House. I am a full-blown Democrat. I do work in bipartisan fashion with my colleagues across the board in order to make important pieces of legislation work, in order to pass fiscally sound bipartisan budgets, in order to continue to provide essential services to our community without in order to continue delivering essential services to our community without raising taxes. Keeping taxes at bay, working on our treatment plant. I'm sure we're gonna get into that much further. Things that actually have nothing to do with the county, we still actually working together across the board. We've been able to deliver for Southwest Yonkers, which is one of the most needed communities here in Westchester County. For example, the topic of education, that is city and state. Still, no one gets a pass. I don't believe anybody should get a pass, and I'm able to take some funding from the county and deliver to our schools. I've been doing it for quite some time, actually, with WestHab, giving them $10,000 to give back to school supplies to children, not just in my district, but across some other parts of Yonkers, Southwest Yonkers, taking the money over to some other properties, like the Park Ledge Apartments, going into Enrico Fermi School. This is something we want to do in a couple of schools around Southwest Yonkers as well, delivering services to our seniors directly into their homes. I mean, the list goes on, and I'm going to go into full depth as the questions come in. Thank you.
First, I want to thank Ludlow and Park Hill for assembling this. This is a great job, great turnout. Give yourselves a round of applause. I want to first introduce myself. My name is London Reyes. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. I'm married to a public school teacher who teaches music, and it's hard for me to say that because it's been a struggle, as you guys know, with Yonkers and public education, so I've been fighting that fight for God knows how long. But I also want to thank some of the people that signed my petition. We collected 3,000, I have some of my teammates here, 3,000 petitions, and that's important. And the reason why that's important is because we need to take back our city from experienced politicians who stack the deck in their favor. We elect officials consistently, we shouldn't, but we do, that put priorities of big donors and self-serving politics above the needs of people. So no longer should we elect those that serve money over people. We want our politicians to work for us. So it's time to take back our city and hold those accountable. We need to select someone that will unite us based on a set of common goals. I have demonstrated the ability to secure millions of dollars by fighting for our fair share of revenue. She had mentioned something about taxes, we'll touch upon that. Successfully, I've rallied, securing $25 million along with some of the parents, some of the unions that are present here, CSCA, Yonkers Teachers Federation, the PTA, and the Hispanic Coalition. So what does that mean? That means we have to change our philosophy. It's the philosophy that's wrong. So we need to invest in people. We need to make decisions that benefit the general population and not just the special interests. We need to stop expanding tax loopholes to benefit the rich. We need to refund, not defund health clinics. We need to expand, not disband new services. We need to increase, not decrease, affordable child care. We have to stop electing people who enjoy cutting services to support tax breaks for big business and multimillionaires. Wealth inequality hurts development and growth of everyone, and charity is not a substitute for adequate funding. And on that note, we will talk about more of the issues. Thank you so very much.
Question, I'll start with London. What specific actions will you take to play an effective watchdog role with respect to the Westchester County Wastewater Treatment Plant a few blocks west of here on the Hudson?
Wow, that is such a great question because that has been a problem for such a long time. For those people that have been suffering with that situation, God bless you. Because it's not easy living in a community where when you walk out your house, it smells like somebody lit up a stink bomb and you can't get rid of it. And what's even more saddening, and this is why I'm here, is that we elect officials to represent our views. And instead of voting their democratic values, they choose to support the Republican Party by collecting those donations and then voting 100% with the Republican Party, which is why you don't see my opponent taking pictures with some of the Democrats, which is why you don't see some of the Democrats support her. This has been an ongoing problem, whether it's on the city council level or in this case on the county level, and it's hurting our community. Again, we have to put the people first, and we have to take big business and powerful interests away from the equation, and that's what I intend to do day one. We're going to take the county that's under Republican control because Virginia Perez with Mike Kapowitz went to the Republicans and only caucused with the Republicans. Day one, the Democratic Party will have control, which means we have access to $1.8 billion, and you're gonna get everything that you deserve. That water treatment plant will be an issue, no longer. Services, not an issue. We will provide them. $1.8 billion, we have the money.
Thank you. I'm going to answer that question, but first I have to make a note of the fact that Mr. Ray just loves to just throw things out there. Big money, you know, big donations, big this, big that. He raised more money than I did, actually. I'm not out there raising campaign money because the important thing for me is to be out there working a grassroots campaign, connecting with my community, saying that I'm not endorsed by my Democrats, but I am the endorsed Democratic candidate, and I am constantly being endorsed by Democrats like you because you continue to support me over and over and over again, and I am eternally grateful for that. Because the only endorsement that truly matters is yours. So, the sewage treatment plant, he's claiming that if he gets in there, that it will no longer be a problem. I guess he has a magic wand and he's going to make the plant disappear. No one is going to make the plant disappear. Not my predecessor, not me, and not anybody that comes after me. The plant was there before my parents were born. However, I have Another thing, I do quarterly meetings at the treatment plant, and those of you who are residents of the Lolo Park Association know we've been doing this for years. We send the monthly reports as well, and we've even done tours of the plant. Everyone is welcome. This is open to the public. Mr. Reyes is invited as my guest of honor, actually. I would love to give you a tour myself of the plant. I don't understand how Mr. Reyes can speak about problems at the plant when he has never attended any one of those meetings. He has never set foot in the plant. He does not know what is going on in the plant itself. I have released millions of dollars for the odor remediation and HVAC improvement projects at the plant. Our plant, we've done a study, and here in our state, our plant is one of the best, actually. If anybody drives through the West Side Highway, you will see you have a sewer treatment plant with a beautiful park over it. That was their reward to the community for putting a plant there. But when you drive there, it smells terrible. Our plant is one of the best. We have released millions of dollars for the improvement. I can answer more specific questions if you want. A couple of you have some handouts that we're giving out so that you can see more details. But I'm here to answer that. So just recently we released $94 million actually for that. So Mr. Reyes is completely wrong. He has not given you any true actual facts, just putting out words from the air.
So as far as the rebuttal, she talks about attendance, she's absolutely right. She, while she was serving as chairman of the Public Safety Committee, reported to work 33% of the time. Can I sign up for that job where I go get full salary and only show up 33% of the time? Which is why she was replaced. Second of all, $10 million, you're absolutely right, were allocated to the sewer treatment, and it still stinks. That wasn't money well spent. Someone should be held accountable, and that starts September 12th.
The only thing that stinks is the inaccurate statements that continue to come. And I don't know where he's getting the fact that I didn't attend my meetings. I attend my meetings, and I was never replaced. I was elevated, and now I'm chair of the Committee of Legislation, which is one of the two most important committees and mandated by our county charter. Every piece of legislation that is going to be vetted and passed in our county has to go through my committee first.
Okay, Virginia, would you, going first with this question, would you support the idea of a Westchester County ID for all citizens or not, sorry, I'm not getting this right, similar to that of a New York City ID, so an ID for all regardless of whether citizens? If so, would you lead the charge?
It's already been done. We already took care of that. I'm also, yes, I support it because I already did it. And actually, everyone can go out there, whether legal or illegal, because people do need to have proper identification. Anything can happen, and first responder needs to be able to identify you. Your family members need to be able to identify you. That's why you carry an ID with you. And for other things that you need to carry an ID with you to file employment applications and things of that nature, it's already been done. It was one of the things that I actually was very proud to support, along with the support of my Democratic colleagues. I do conference and caucus with my Democratic colleagues. It isn't true what my opponent is saying, that I conference with the Republicans. He's not in there. No one from the public is in there. Everybody knows that we caucus with our own parties. So every piece of legislation that we pass it with the support of our Democratic colleagues. So I don't know what he's talking about.
In terms of immigration, that's Captain Borges' bill. Unfortunately, Virginia Perez, who was not born in the United States, was not on that bill originally. And so in order to avoid embarrassment as an immigrant who came in here and took advantage, she got on there at the last minute, which is why the Democratic legislators publicly thanked her, because she wasn't there in the beginning. Second of all, she says she's in charge, and she sits on a board that governs and determines what legislation gets through and doesn't get through. Now I understand why. You should understand why we have no services. This is why Southwest Yonkers is suffering, and this is why Ludlow, when you walk by there, it still stinks. Because we have to increase the funding. I promise not to govern through subtractions. The way that she balances budget is, what can I cut? And who's funding me? Okay, we'll give him all his tax breaks. That has to stop. Look at what's happening to Yonkers. Look at the city. Look at the news. Look at the violence. Look what's happening. She although she doesn't want to admit it, we'll release some video of Channel 12 News who covered when she left the Democratic Party. It was reported on Channel 12, reported on Low HUD. These are facts. You're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Follow the news.
Of course, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Follow your own rule. So, because he has no facts. Anyways, Catherine Borja is a very well-respected colleague of mine, and we work very hard together, and her, myself, and the rest of our Democratic colleagues on that bill. Apparently, I'm an immigrant who's embarrassed. You should be embarrassed, actually. You are a Latino who doesn't speak the language and is calling another Latino names, that I should be embarrassed to come into this country and have a piece of the American dream. So it is because I am on the Committee of Legislation that we push forward legislations like the Immigrant Protection Act. We actually pushed the displaced workers legislation, protecting workers who are union workers. So when buildings are sold, the workers are not displaced. We're working together, Catherine Borja and I and the rest of my Democratic colleagues are working together and passing a paid sick leave to protect union workers as well. The long list goes on and on. We work together. No one makes one legislator do something that they don't want to do. So again, he's just making up his own facts.
Paid sick leave is another thing that she didn't want to endorse or embrace or follow, which is why I publicly called her and sent out a press release to ask her to join us. I did not see her in White Plains rallying along with the unions. I've never seen Virginia Perez, and if anybody can correct me, please stand up and let me know. I'm more than happy to apologize. I have never seen Virginia Perez at a rally fighting for the people's cause. That's something that I've always done and I will continue to do, and the vote for me gives you a seat at the table because I work for you.
Question about the airport. The Board of Legislators is expected to vote in 2017 on a lease negotiation with one of three bidders on a long-term lease for the airport privatization. What is your position on the proposed public-private partnership recently released in the airport master plan? The Astorino administration proposes the privatization plan as a major source of revenues for the county. If privatization does not occur, where should the county look to balance its budget?
They should tax everybody fairly. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. We love Rich Hill, right? I wish we could collect the tax revenue for all those buildings and those businesses that don't pay any taxes or pay very little taxes. And that goes on for 50 to the next 100 years. So if you don't have money coming in, how do you pay for the services? You have to sell off your assets. It's almost like a credit card, right? I can use a credit card, but I'm not really spending cash, so I don't see it. Then the bill comes in and I realize I don't have the money to pay for it, so let me sell my TV. In this case, it's the airport. Let me sell my car. Maybe that's Rye Playland. And you're selling off assets. It's not a good way to manage budgets. The mismanagement of these budgets for the last 6 years is criminal. And maybe one day when they start to really dig into these numbers, somebody will truly be held accountable. We are already $15 million in the hole before we even spend a penny or dime. We're $81 million is what we're gonna wind up paying back for all of these tax breaks and cuts and services that her and Rob Astorino have worked so hard to put together that has all of us paying for all of that. Look at the news, look at the streets. It's really simple. Elections come down to one or two issues. You either like what's happening in the streets of Yonkers and in the county, and you want those things to continue, or you feel like we need a fundamental change. We don't like the direction that we're going in. And I say we vote for change.
Thank you. Just quickly, if you want to see me at rallies, I invite you to join me on become my friend on Facebook, and you can follow me and see every rally that I have attended. Here you go. So you see my photos. So for the airport, we're not selling the airport. That just shows that my opponent hasn't done his homework. We're not selling the airport. We're forming a public-private partnership. In order for us to get funding from the airport, in order for the county to make money out of the services from the airport needs to continue to sustain itself under current FAA rules. We can't take money out of the airport, but once we go ahead and we take, once the bid process is over, because it's not, Once we select the final bidder and we move forward, we're going to make money out of the airport for that. And it will be a 40-year lease.
I apologize.
Sorry. Yeah, it will be a 40-year lease. We're not selling the airport. Westchester County will still be in control of the airport. And the reason why we need to form that partnership is so that, again, we can alleviate your taxes.
Alleviate the taxes because the taxes are all going to the wealthy, and they have to do that. That's what it comes down to. The reason why we're suffering again is because we don't have enough revenue, because we keep catering to the upper class, the super wealthy. It happens on a corporate level, it happens when it's construction, it happens on a city, federal level. We need to change philosophies. The trickle-down effect is not working. And standing up here and being dishonest when you know that this information is out there for the public domain, it can be very easily researched, which is what I've done, and I can also supply that.
Although Westchester County is the highest tax county in the nation, your tax dollars, when you look at the breakdown of your tax bill, less than half, actually 20-something cents out of your every tax dollar goes towards county for your county provided services. More than half of your tax dollars goes to the school districts, and the rest of that goes to the special districts. So special districts, water districts. So the smallest portion of your taxes, just look at your tax bill, the smallest portion of your taxes is taken for Westchester County services.
Okay, this will be the last question for the legislators. Virginia, do you believe our county is in the midst of a housing crisis? And what steps would you take to create or preserve low-income housing?
Well, we all know that finally the war between the federal government and our county executive has finished. We all know that we did lose over $25 million of CDBG funding, community block grant funding. Yonkers was not affected by that because Yonkers was not part of that affordable housing settlement that was put into place, that was taken into place by County Executive then Andy Sparano. We did have the problem with that was that we had to put in about 10 or 11 different proposals. Finally HUD accepted, and we're moving forward. Actually, we were ahead of schedule with the 750 units of affordable housing. So right now, the county is moving at the right speed, providing affordable housing, quality affordable housing for all residents throughout Westchester County. We do have a lot of residents that are moving in for other parts of the county, moving north because they want to have a good quality of life for the children. They wanted to take their children to a good school district. And I mean, we meet sadly, some people from Southwest Yonkers or some other parts of Yonkers are moving North County, taking advantage of that, which is great, but because of the school districts, and that comes back to the fact that the burden into our cities because the state is not providing proper funding. So we have, we have to also remember that a lot of the financial problems that our county is suffering, with the county is being crippled financially because of the burden of unfunded mandates from our state. So we continue to work together and ask our governor, ask our state senators to properly fund our every mandate, so that way you will pay less tax dollars.
This makes me sad because this is the state of America. You starve the poor, you punish the poor, and it's pretty clear that Ms. Perez and the Republican Party have a war on women, have a war on the poor, and it affects us every single day in our lives. And at some point, us as a community have to wake up and say, what do we want? How do we want to live? Do we want to live under these conditions, in this environment? This is not good. I've been in Yonkers for 26 years. The first week I moved into Yonkers, I'm on the picket line with my wife fighting with the teachers union about contracts because the school system was falling apart. And here we are all these years later, and the problem has only gotten worse. And in the county, it's the same way. There's a reason why people keep getting reelected, and it's not because they're doing a great job, because if they were, the news would not be reporting what they're reporting, and all of you would not be here right now. You're here because you're concerned, and I'm concerned. And for 15 years, I've been providing services for my community without getting paid. And people say, why do you do it? That's crazy. You don't even have kids in here anymore. Because I know that there's a need. And I have passion. I have compassion. So when you see these kids every single day, and you teach them sports, basketball, music, and all these different programs, just know that I know the issues extremely well because I deal with it every day. I live in Yonkers. I don't visit Yonkers.
My own point, apparently a war against women, then I must not be a woman then. So he's been here for 26 years. I've been here for 28 years. I went to the Yonkers public schools here. I went to Rico Fermi as a child, then Emerson Junior High School, and then Saunders and Technical High School. Once I graduated, I wanted to stay close to home, and I went to community college so that A, I can be close to home, I can work close to home, be with my family, be part of my community, and graduate without having any bills after I graduated college. So I live in Yonkers. I've lived in the exact same district in Southwest Yonkers since the age of 10. This is my community. My community, like I mentioned in my opening, I took a $40,000 pay cut, a significant pay cut to do what I do today. And I do it with great pride and great joy and a great sense of humility. So I don't know what my opponent is talking about, tax breaks for the rich. We all pay the same taxes when it comes to property taxes. So.
So bringing it back to affordable housing and not low-income housing, there was a misstatement earlier today. Everyone needs to understand that affordable housing means that you work. This is not welfare or Section 8 or unsavory people. These are everyday, hardworking people that need an affordable place to live, and they don't mind working for it. And I support that. I think we need more of it. And I think that we need to negotiate with those that understand that and will provide it. There's no reason for us to be going to court in order to resolve that issue. You should have humanity on your side.
You are doing the first closing. 2 minutes.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming here today and supporting this whole process. Out of 15,000 registered Democrats, the last primary Virginia Perez ran, she received 664 total votes. Less than 5%, 4%, 3.5%, whatever that comes out to. That tells me that there's a lot of apathy. A lot of people feel that it doesn't matter who we put in office. It's always the same thing. And I understand that argument. I get it. And this is why we need to go in a separate direction. I'm not a politician. I'm not a business person. Although I've been offered a lot of money not to run in this race. I don't do this for the money. I've been providing services for 15 years and not getting paid. I don't do it for the money. I do it because as a kid growing up in a single family environment, as a product of the system, growing up on welfare in Section 8 and running those streets because there were no child care services. If it wasn't for places like the YMCA and after school places that I can go to and learn how to keep my time occupied, my whole entire life will be completely different. So I'm a survivor. I made it. And every child that's here that grew up like me deserves the same opportunity. And we don't give it to them. And Virginia, who is a minority, who wasn't born in this country, doesn't have the right to go with the Republicans and take away those human rights. The right to an education, the right to health care, the right to affordable subsidies, it's not right. She cut $144,000 out of food pantries. That's why you don't see that many anymore. If you are a person that believes in any God, you know you take care of the elderly and the poor, the women and the children. That's how I was raised. When someone needs a seat and it's a woman, you get up. Someone older than you, you get up and you show respect. Our government and our elected officials don't respect us. And we need, and I plead with you to make that change. And I ask for your vote so that we can begin to change this process. It is unhealthy. It affects our children. That affects us as adults. And on that note, I just ask you, please, look at the news and understand what's going on. Enough of the suffering. Let's vote change.
He's not a politician, he is not a business person, he's a great entertainer. And unlike my opponent, I lived here 28 years of my life. I didn't move here from the Bronx like my opponent, claiming to have an invested interest in the community like my opponent. I have roots here from childhood over the way to today's date, and hopefully up into my senior and golden years. And saying that I cut education, I have nothing to do with cutting any type of educational services. Whatever figures he's throwing, he's getting it out of thin air. Everything I vote for, everything my colleagues vote for, it is public information. Just because he say it, as many times as he says it, and as loud as he says it, whatever it is he's saying is not true. You can say it, just because you say it, it doesn't make it true. Anything we vote for is not secret, it's public. Please do your research and don't just take anyone's word for it. Mr. Reyes wants to talk about respect, but he doesn't even respect you enough to proofread the material that he's trying to sell to you so that you can give him your vote. If you can't spell the word legislator, but you're trying to be one, then we have a problem, okay? If you don't take the time to proofread, if you don't take the time, and there's no one to blame but the candidate themselves, because this is your image, this is your name, and when you go up to the County Board of Legislators, you are literally an extension of your community. So if you don't take the time to properly proofread a simple pamphlet, how can we trust you to read pieces of legislations, contracts, and budget books that are literally hundreds of pages long? You're not going to be able to provide services for us because you won't even get to the first page. I thank you so much for being here tonight. I thank you for the support that you've given me in the past. I humbly ask you to continue to support me. I'm here to answer questions. My county number is 914-995-2846. My cell phone number, 914-893-8132. Also, 914-656-4911. Please friend me on Facebook at legislatorvirginiaperez.com, and I'll stick around to answer more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, okay. All right, so now we have the final section of the evening for the county executive, Mr. Latimer and Ken Jenkins. There you are, back in the corner. Get that quarter out. Okay, those of you who are in the back of the room, I ask you to, if you want to discuss items, please leave and talk outside. It's a nice night, but we don't want people to not be able to hear what's happening now. So.
Home team. You're the home team. That's why you call it. You're going to call? Heads.
We're not very good at this.
Tails. I swear.
Well, good evening, everyone. Let's try that again. Good evening. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure to be out here with you all this evening. I want to thank the Ludlow Park Residents Association for having this opportunity to address you this evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ken Jenkins, and I am the son of a nurse and a cop, a proud husband and father, a person that's been on the County Board of Legislators for the last 10 years, and I'm running to be your next county executive. You know, right now we're in a really challenging time. And instead of talking about the next step, because in November we got a really important election. We have an election on September 12th. And that's your opportunity to make sure that your voice is heard. And we've been going around throughout the county and speaking to individuals and talking to them about what things that we can do differently. And what I'm going to invite you to do is what I hope every voter does. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Someone told me I had to keep it lower. I want you to go and you want to look at the records and see the delivery of services for here in Westchester County. From a county perspective, since 2010, when Rob Astorino came into office, I'm the only candidate that's delivered a tax reduction. And we did that by doubling the tax relief that Rob Astorino proposed, putting $5 million into not-for-profit partners, and saving hundreds of union jobs. We did that in staying inside of our budget plan. And that's why I'm the only candidate that's in front of you tonight that has a budget plan that does not talk about increasing taxes. Because we do know how to do it. We have a track record of doing that. We know how to do it better, stronger, and faster. We're the only candidate that's going through this particular time to make a difference. So we're going to look forward, answer your questions, and we'll wrap up a little bit later on with a closing statement. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Well, good evening. I'm George Latimer. I'm the least known candidate that's coming before you tonight. So give me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in the city of Mount Vernon on the south side. I was the only white kid in an African-American neighborhood, product of the Mount Vernon public school systems, graduate of Mount Vernon High School 1970. I'll save you doing the math. I'm 63 years old. I did my undergraduate as a commuter at Fordham University. I have a master's from NYU in public administration. I spent 20 years in corporate America working in sales and marketing for subsidiaries of Nestle and ITT. My dad was a maintenance man who worked with his hands all his life. If there was a local 32BJ in those days, he would have been a member of that, but he worked outside of the union. My mom was a machinist, and she worked in factories along McQuestion Parkway and South Street. They worked hard so that myself and my sister would have a chance, and they're both gone now. In fact, it's 20 years ago this week that my mother passed away, and I hope that they look down from where they are and they see this is what the sacrifice of their lives got, that my sister and myself have had a decent opportunity to live a life. And now it's an opportunity for me in public office to fight for the very same stand and Loretta's that exist. Now, Ken Jenkins is my friend and I respect his public record, but when he talks about what he's done, that's fair game. Let me talk about what I've done. I've been in public office as a councilman in the city of Rye. I've been in the county legislature for 13 years, and I was the first Democrat to chair the Board of Legislators. You may have forgot that, and if you're of a certain age and you're youthful, you wouldn't know it at all. I served in both houses of the state legislature. Right now, I stand alongside Andrea Stewart-Cousins in her conference, and she should be the majority leader of the New York State Senate, and I'm on her side in this battle, as everybody in this room should be. In the time that I've been in public office, I've touched on every major progressive issue you can think of. And in the last 10 years, I was in the state legislature. And I did vote to cut taxes twice in the state legislature, state income taxes, which we did in 2011, and we did again in 2016. And my record in the county legislature, when I was chairman of the Board of Legislators, we had 3 straight years where we cut county property tax levy. So there's going to be lots of questions tonight, and over those questions, you're going to get a chance to hear about the full record. The most important thing you have to do is learn about each of us in detail so you can make the best possible choice as to who can win.
George Latimer, first question. What are the major changes you would propose in your first executive budget?
Well, the first thing that I look forward to doing is going through every single department and trying to reestablish a workable level of employment for the various departments, because they've all been decimated under the Rob Astorino budget. We've had a reduction in police, 10 less positions. That makes us less safe. We've decimated over the course of these last 7 budgets. We've decimated the planning department, which makes us less professional in the way we go about doing our job. We've decimated the Department of Public Works, which makes it harder for us to get out contracts and programs and so forth. And in every one of these departments, Department of Health, Recreation, et cetera, there's been a desire to reduce staffing as a way to show fiscal responsibility, when in fact, it's the height of fiscal irresponsibility. Because he says he's delivered no tax increase for you, and that's not true, and I'll get into that as part of a question. But I would tell you this. The plan that is going to work for Westchester County is going to start without making promises about what you're going to do about taxes, but to analyze the situation and the mess that Rob Astorino was leaving us. I'm going to call upon the state controller to come in and audit Westchester County within the first month that I'm county executive. Look at every single element of spending in the county, and let's get an honest assessment of that. The second thing I'm going to do is have a blue ribbon commission made up of business people, academics, not-for-profits, people in the community all across this county to help us develop a 4-year plan, since the term is 4 years, of how we're going to start the process of building things back. And I'm not going to make stupid promises. You know, you got a guy in Washington making a promise every other day of the crazy things he's going to do. We're going to do the right thing and not promise BS.
Jenkins, same question.
I forgot to say at the beginning again, please don't express your approval or disapproval during the questions.
All right. So the question was whether or not, what would we do first in office? Let me tell you something. We have right now in our county charter, right now, every department has a citizens advisory board. Every one. Every one of them is supposed to give a report to the county executive and then to the board of legislators. If you look right now, you wouldn't see any of that. That's what part of the difference is understanding exactly what's supposed to be happening right now. We have a blue ribbon panel of panelists for our company budget. It's called the Citizens Budget Advisory Group, where they come in and they let us know exactly what things should be happening in each and every department. Those kind of things are the things that we would have to get back to, because Rob Astorino has walked away from all of those things. And whether those are unfunded mandates, or whether those are things that we need to take care of in each department as far as our $1.8 billion budget, to make sure those dollars get spent appropriately, and making sure that we take care of the 7 unions that are without contract, including the CSEA, which has been without a contract for 7 years. Making sure that we reinvest into our local communities in the partnership. And by the way, it's a partnership with our school districts, where we provide money to the not-for-profit partners that provide the services in each of the schools that we have. And if we need to get to that place of talking about what we might need to do for revenue increases, that won't happen for another year. The first time, the first budget that George Latimer or Ken Jenkins will look at is not until 2018.
When we talk about revenue, the presumption is that we're going to raise taxes to get the revenue. Let me tell you one idea that I've already fought for, that I'm going to work harder for if I'm county executive. Do you know that New York State pays Rockland County and Putnam County money to compensate for the state-owned land in their counties? Did you know that? Did you know that the state pays no money to Westchester County for the state-owned land in Westchester County? I have legislation to accomplish that mission so that Westchester County gets money from the state in the same way that Rockland and Putnam does. If that happens, that is additional revenue for Westchester County and also for the towns and cities. We fight for that. We fight for that in a unified group of people, and there's additional revenue that we use to get things right in this county.
Absolutely, thank you, Judge. You have to make choices when you're working with your partners at the federal and state level. When the question was asked to me about that specific question about taxes getting paid to Rockland County that we didn't get in Westchester County, I said, I don't care about what they get in Rockland County. What I care about is making sure that the people of Westchester can do things like get rid of that biggest bill that we have, which is the Medicaid bill that we have. Let's have those dollars, because if we get $100,000 more from the state of New York to pay for property taxes on parkland, then that sounds really good. But we have a $1.8 billion budget with a big hole, and we need to take care of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you. My job, and I'm doing it badly. This question, $200,000 has been budgeted to do a housing needs assessment. The county executive has not released the funds for this study. If elected, will you fund this needs assessment? And what is your plan to develop truly affordable housing in Westchester County?
So, first, we would absolutely let that money go back, because that was one of the things I voted for, which was to reestablish the Affordable Housing Commission, put money into it for them to do a needs assessment that we can go throughout all the communities in Westchester and say how we can partner with those communities and get the affordable housing that we need for our children to live in the communities they grow up in and live and love, and for our seniors and people on fixed income to make sure that they can continue living in this great county. So I would absolutely continue to support the legislation that I adopted and passed to make sure that those dollars go to those housing organizations, and more importantly, can actually get something done by working with the local municipalities, as the regional government that Westchester County is, can do. And we have that track record of doing that again.
But during my time on the County Board of Legislators, when I was chairman of the board, we didn't have all this mishigas going on about affordable housing. We voted for a wide variety of projects, which I supported and my colleagues supported, and we had a unanimous mindset, including Republicans, on the County Board of Legislature. We've lost that because of the ideology of Rob Astorino. He decided that he wanted to stand in the schoolhouse door and oppose the federal government. He said it was a federal overreach. And of course, that federal overreach, I guess, doesn't apply today to the current federal government when it deals with the immigration policy. He's perfectly happy with that policy, not the one of the prior administration. Under my administration, if there is one, I'm going to make it a point for us to go back to where we were in the pre-Rob Astorino days. We're going to work with local governments. We're going to set aside money at the county level to look for projects wherever we find the proper piece of land. We're going to go to the state government, and let me tell you, being in both houses of the state legislature, I know my way around Albany. I know how to walk into an assembly and a Senate office and the executive branch office and be able to argue and be able to get the kind of money Westchester needs. You don't get it by shouting out on them. You get it by understanding who the people are and how to work with them. And then additionally to that, we're going to have a problem in Washington, so get ready for it. The new HUD administration is not going to be supportive of affordable housing. And so we're going to have to figure out how to partner between not-for-profits, municipalities, state money, and county money, because Donald Trump and his administration is not going to do a thing for affordable housing. So we're going to stand up against the Trump philosophy. We're going to tell him he's wrong, and we're going to find a way to do this locally in all those communities that we have to work in. I represent already 10 communities, a third of this county. I know exactly who those leaders are in those communities. I know exactly how to do this negotiation.
When we go back and we look at a fair and affordable housing, how we got here in Westchester County was not easy. It started under the Bush administration, where we were going to lose almost $180 million. And then $500 million was what we had on the table. We had to do work with all our communities, and that's the type of leadership that we need. We know Rob Astorino's not providing it. We know that both of us can provide it, but more importantly, it's about making sure that you work in all those communities. And you know, there's two chairmen that were up here. I'm the first chairman from Yonkers ever, Republican or Democrat.
I don't like to contradict my friend Ken Jenkins. There's a fellow named Andy O'Rourke who also came out of Yonkers, who was chairman of the Board of Legislators. But Ken has been a good chairman of the Board of Legislators. I have no gripe with his record, and I too was a good chairman of the Board of Legislators, and you're going to need to keep that kind of mindset so that the legislature and the executive branch can work together in an intelligent way. Let me tell you that the wrong way to do this is to get into political polemics and shouting out. You have Republican town supervisors in other communities, and we need to work with them and persuade them to make land available, to be able to put together the infrastructure necessary. That's it. I'll continue.
Start with George Latimer. If elected, will you initiate and propose funding for a planning effort to develop alternatives to handle wastewater treatment for the county, such as on-site tertiary treatment facilities for new residential developments, requiring developers to reduce wastewater flows and new treatment facilities up-county?
Yes.
Me too.
We have across the county, you have here a horrific situation in the Ludlow plant, which is a multiple plant that treats sewage not just from your neighborhood, but from Chappaqua and all across the county. On the Sound Shore, which I've represented for a long period of time, we have 4 sewage treatment plants, and the problems that you face here are the problems that we face everywhere. We need upgrades to these plants. We've upgraded some of them, we need more upgrades. And this is where we need a federal commitment to help us do this, because at the end of the day, it's the cleanliness of the Hudson River and the cleanliness of the Long Island Sound that is at stake. And being able to do that in a way where you restrain the odors that come, sometimes it's impossible to do it right all the way, but you can get a hell of a lot better deal here in Ludlow than you've had over the last number of years. And I think that is an example as well of a county that isn't willing to spend any money, not willing to spend any money on capital projects and infrastructure, that basically says to a neighborhood like this, sorry, we can't help you because we're not interested in doing the right thing governmentally and so forth. The different strategies that have been laid out are all parts of the strategies that you have to use around the county, and particularly in the northern part of the county where development does not have already sewer system connections. And those connections, when they come into the same sewer treatment plants, will overfill plants that are already at the maximum. Yours is one example of it. We have the same problem in New Rochelle. We have the same problem in Port Chester on the other side of the county. So these creative strategies are there, but we need help from the state government. We need help from the federal government. And in each of those cases, it's going to be how persuasive the county executive can be, how intelligent and thoughtful and connective they can be to make those partnerships work.
So when we talk about the sewage treatment plant, and we talk about having to build a northern Westchester treatment plant, it's something I proposed. So we put in $5 million to do a study for a northern Westchester treatment plant that could help those northern Westchester communities, by the way, save dollars because they have to do that treatment on their own. So we figured out that if we put a treatment plant in northern Westchester, it could deal with the wastewater MS4 regulations that they have to deal with nitrogen removal and all those kind of things that we have to take care of for our clean water, and have the county pay for it all together. And that's how we can make sure that we can work together with those local municipalities and why they would adopt that kind of philosophy. Here in Ludlow Park, what you need is a new county executive. Because the problem isn't just alone people voting for that, because I heard my colleague on the board talking about they voted for money on the Board of Legislators for Ludlow Park. The commissioner told us at the table that that money would not be spent because they could not do that job. When Jose Alvarado and I put money into the sewage treatment plant to deal with odor remediation, they had been moving that date back year after year after year. It was a philosophy, it was a fallacy, it was a joke, so that a legislator could stand up in front of you now and tell you, we voted for that. That was nonsense. The commissioner told us it could not be done. We could not spend all that money at the same time. It would cause serious odor remediation problems here in the community. So you need a new county executive that's going to work with the community, make sure that we do the investments that we said we're going to do, working with local legislators that make sure that those things happen. Thank you.
I don't have anything to add. I think we've covered the topic pretty thoroughly.
No, why rebut if it's good?
Exactly. Okay, so this is going to be the last question, and then we'll have the closing statements. So I'm trying to consolidate two questions, so bear with me for a minute. What are your goals for the airport? And what is your position on the proposed public-private partnership? And what happens if it is not approved in November when if they do not get the supermajority?
All right, I'll try to do them quick. First, from the airport, my position is clear. We should be not doing anything. No one should be doing anything as far as an airport RFP until a master plan is approved. And just from a business perspective, why would you spend $1 of your money bidding on something when you don't know what it's going to look like at the end? When the person came from the county and told us that the Board of Legislators, the people that have to adopt this master plan won't see it until November, all right, fine, stop everything. That's first. Second, we should have never voted for a budget. I know I did not vote for a budget. I know my 7 Democratic colleagues voted against the budget that had a $15 million budget line in it for the airport. Because quite frankly, we know it's a scary process when you got elected officials looking for money. So we're not going to do that. The final part is that I don't think that the public-private partnership, people understand exactly what that means. We had Arthur Bernaccia die over the weekend from Liberty Lines, and people read, oh wait, that's a first public-private partnership for Westchester County. Well, the airport is a public-private partnership already. We pay a manager to run the airport. We have 3 employees of the county. This is all about trying to get to the $25 million that's at the dedicated airport fund, and that's all this is about. Trying to get that money in because of the bad decisions in the fiscal mismanagement of Rob Astorino. We can't have that happen.
I would hope that the current County Board of Legislators would not vote for a plan, and I would hope they would use the Merrill Garland rule that was used last year. And the Merrill Garland rule said that in the last year of an elected official's tenure, we're not going to appoint your Supreme Court judge. So let's apply that now on the other side of the coin. Let's say in the last year of Rob Astorino's tenure, we're not going to let you sell off the airport and privatize it. We're not going to let you take grandfather clock that was purchased by your great-grandfather and nurtured by your grandfather and your father, and we're going to let you sell it for a couple of $100 because in the short term you need a couple of $100 for whatever it is you think you need. And that's what this is. And the real issue here is loss of control. Because I'll tell you, if we allow this under the guise of privatization, and if you re-elect Rob Astorino, he will do the same thing to other assets of this county. He'll sell them off like it's a fire sale. Why? Because he has one goal, and that's to become governor. And to become governor, he has one goal. He wants to be able to go through Western New York and say, I never raised taxes. I did this and that and the other thing in Westchester County. And how did you do it? You sold the furniture for firewood. That's how you did it. And at some point in time, there's no furniture, and the fire goes out. So this airport should not be privatized. And I'll tell you what I would do as county executive. I would invite the Board of Legislators. I would invite them to say, develop a set of principles that represent privatization as you, the legislature, sees fit. Create those principles, and any deal in the future would have to meet those principles before we would even consider a privatization. Let's not do it at budget time when a gun is put to a legislator's head and say, hey, either do what I tell you to do, or you're going to blow a hole in the budget. That's the kind of manipulation that's got to stop.
And that's what the master plan should be. That's 3.5 years overdue and over budget, just like everything else Rob Astorino does. And that's why you need a new county executive, and you need the people that understand what's going on today in the county.
Is this it, like the last comment of anything we're going to say? Or
No, just a rebuttal if you want to. Yeah.
Once again, I think we've said what we needed to say about the airport. We both don't like the deal.
So, first closing statement, George.
In the next 15 days, 14 days, you have a choice to make between Ken and myself. I have said publicly from the beginning of the process, if Ken wins on the night of the primary, I endorse him that night, I support him, I campaign with him, I give him money, and together we go forward as a unified party. Why? Because both of us have said in our own ways, with our own different experiences, that the change in public policy at the county level is critical, and it's more important than any individual's career. If it is my lot to lose the primary, then I will be a good state senator, and I will work with the next county executive, which I hope will be Ken Jenkins. But let me tell you, I'm running because I believe I have the best opportunity of beating Rob Astorino. Because there's an element of your decision you're going to have to make it in the privacy of your own mind. And you're going to have to determine. You look at Rob Astorino, how tough he is as a candidate, how much money he's raised, the way he has smoothly communicated through all of this county, not just in your backyard, but in 35 backyards that represent the communities and the hamlets of this county. I've run and won tough races over part of northern Westchester. I've won the eastern side of Yonkers twice electorally. I've won my home city of Rye 15 times. I outran President Obama and Governor Cuomo in Rye as a Democrat. You need to win this race. You need to win it. Ken is a good man. If he's the man, I'm with him. But I think I offer you an opportunity to win this race.
And as I've said from day one, because someone else asked me that same question, that if George Latimer was the person that won in the Democratic primary, we'd be foursquare behind him from day one. And we always had that conversation. So that's not really what the problem is and discussion is for right now. Because we do have a choice to make, and you all have an opportunity to make that. And part of the opportunity is to make sure that your voice is heard. And that's something that's been a challenge for us in our structures, in our Democratic Party, and all those kind of things. So you have that opportunity to make sure your voice is heard, because we know at the end that we can't do the same things and expect a different result. And we need to turn out more than 23% of the voting electorate on election day to make that happen. There's a whole set of people, for whatever sets of reasons throughout this county, that have stayed at home. And you know what? I didn't get to be NACP president, the chairman of the Board of Legislators, by just being not being able to stand up and fight. We need to have those fighters in this particular case. I know and I feel strongly that I give us the best chance to win against Rob Astorino because we changed the game. We're not doing the same thing. We're pulling together with our progressive values and making sure that everyone is working together for the betterment of Westchester County. I know if George Latimer wins, that he would do a lot of that same kind of thing, right? Because he is that kind of individual. But we have to make a choice and make that difference. And you've got to look at the records in Westchester to do that. George has done a tremendous job in all the categories that he's going through, whether it's at the Assembly or at the Senate level or even at the county board. But we got to look at the votes, and we got to look at the legislation that's been adopted. What things made a difference for the people of Westchester County? Whether it was for progressive values, whether it was for term limits, whether it was for the environment, whether it was for fair and affordable housing, and who stood on those front lines. Because nobody knows Rob Astorino better than me. Thank you. Have a good night.
I want to thank all of our participants and especially you, the audience. You were a great audience. You cooperated magnificently. I also want to announce Yonkers Voice has said that they have scheduled a debate with Virginia Perez and London Reyes that will be on September 5th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the Yonkers Public Library. It's sponsored and moderated by Yonkers Voice, who has been filming this evening. Thank you.